All right, so here is an example coming from Walmart. Here, instead of looking into the future, we are looking back in history, and based on accounting data, we want to estimate the Walmart's free cash flow to equity in 2019, right? Why do we need 2018 and 19's data to get the free cash flow to equity in 2019? Things will get clearer as we get to change in working capital, because we need to calculate change in working capital. That needs 2 time points value. Okay. Other than that, 2019 is just good enough. But let's see. The approach that I'm going to take is multiplying. Okay, multiplication. Net income times 1 minus ERR would be your free cash flow to equity. For that ERR, you need to calculate the debt to IC ratio, okay, debt to invested capital. For invested capital, you need to compute the total debt amount, and you got total shareholders equity amount from accounting report, okay, good. Debt amount, I told you, or whatever interest bearing debt, corporate borrowing, that will be it, not liabilities again. So total debt amount, you can compute it using adding these two, adding that two, right? And then shareholders equity, okay, you can get to IC. This will be okay for you. And then you need 2 investments to take care: capital expenditure and then change in working capital. The capital expenditure, well, CapEx, right? And acquisitions, whatever you spent on acquiring other companies, that is another form of CapEx. So add it together. In contrast, related to this issue, any divestitures should be negative CapEx. Divestiture means like a 발빼기, kind of, getting out of that industry by selling off your assets and then 손 털어버려, like a bye-bye divestiture. Well, selling off your equipment, you get cash. That's negative CapEx. So that's why I say minus over here, right? Anyway, so that's that. And then depreciation, well, that's minus, right? To get net capital net capital expenditure. Okay, so that's that. Change in working capital. First of all, calculate your working capital. You need only 3 items: AR plus inventory minus AP. So this should happen. You'll get those 2. And the change over here should be this guy minus that guy. 2019 minus 18 should be on 2019. Okay, that's the change. Once you have the change in net working capital or working capital, you have NCE, then you will be able to compute ERR, and then you will be able to compute free cash flow to equity. Okay, now the next slide is the answer to you. As you see, ERR is very, very small, because a well-established company, this can happen. Okay, not much to reinvest. Now, historical FCFE of Walmart, is this the exact free cash flow to equity holders? And I would say no, this is always an estimation with some errors anyway. It's still better than nothing and better than net income. Of course, it just happened to be almost the same as net income for Walmart, but things will be drastically different for many companies, usually more companies than not. And then negative free cash flow to equity typically means that the company should issue new equity in that year, okay, to pay dividend. Anyway, so that's that. Free cash flow to equity model to value a stock. Well, we use the same idea, same framework of value, okay? Should be equal to cash flow divided by R minus G in 1-stage growth model. Okay, let's live in a very simple world if your company is slowly growing. Anyway, cash flow 1 will be expected value of free cash flow to equity 1, right? Year 1. You just learned about it. R comes from CAPM, right? Seems like we are ready, but growth. Here, again, the growth should be growth in net income, okay? So growth rate of earnings. This is the most difficult part, okay? Well, top-down approach is there if you go to the industry, okay? Equity analysts in banks typically start from top lines, which is sales, okay? Over the next X years. Then subtract all the cost items and adjust for cash flows that grows in fluctuating manner, okay? However, most of this procedure requires very industry-specific knowledge. For example, if it is Samsung Electronics, how many semiconductor chips would be produced in each different factories and each different specification of chips, right? What nano, what 회로선폭, like widths of the circuits, and then what capacity, like 4 gigabytes or 8 gigabytes, or right, or system on chip. All these kind of different chips are there, and then different factories. We call it fab in Samsung, right? You don't need to write down or anything. Don't memorize it. I'm not going to test you in the exam. No, this is something you're going to learn in industry. Those analysts in the industry will impress you. Okay, this is the way they impress you and their knowledge, industry knowledge. Okay, and then you will be like overwhelmed, right? My teacher, Andy, did not teach me this thing. Bad Andy. No, come on. I cannot teach thousands of different industries specific knowledge to you. That's something you have to acquire on the job. Okay. That's not something you can memorize by doing CPA exam or CFA exam. Nothing, no way. Okay, that's only on the job, something you can learn. Okay, there's no way of teaching all these things in class. This is something you could do it on the job, right? Alternative approach is the thing we teach, right? Because this one directly play with the growth rate via economic fundamental relationships. This is what we do in this semester, just like what you did in DDM model. Remember, growth rate in net income should be ROE times retention ratio, that kind of things, okay? Instead of coming from all the way from the top of sales to the bottom of net income, all the way down, and then estimated its growth going into the future. That's industry specific, I said. Instead of doing that, we're going to directly estimate your growth rate in net income, that kind of things, right? So growth rate in net income should be ROE times reinvestment related ratios, either retention ratio you call it, or equity reinvestment rate in FCFE. This is the only way, this is only one of, not the only way, one of many ways of projecting growth rate. This is using economic fundamental ratios, reinvestment related ratio. In FCFE model, it should be ERR. Expected ROE, well, that's something you can expect on your own. Am I allowed to do that? Yes, it's your liberty. Okay? So this is why marketing guys can flourish in this finance. Can I imagine that? You are allowed. This is why accounting guys suck over here, because accounting guys are like, give me your way of doing it and I will punch in the numbers correctly. You're in trouble. Okay? So this is where you can fly high. Okay? It's your flexibility, it's your liberty to assume whatever it may be, but specify and remember to be able to say your story in a coherent manner. That's important part. Now, this ROE, this is the same as dividend discount model. It is a measure of management efficiency ROE. It really depends on the ability of the CEOs and the top guy over there, right? Top guy, CEO or 회장님. Okay. or 부회장. First, look back in history to have some solid understanding of ROE, right? You cannot randomly throw out any random ROEs over there. You have to have some backup, right? For that part, you have to first look at the history. See the average ROE level the CEO achieved. This is my way of doing it, okay? It's more person specific, okay? But CEO, the top guy, okay, the 회장님, has a significant impact on the management, right? It drives very drastically differently, okay? Who you have as a top guy matters a lot, okay? You might say, oh, those secretaries, like 가신들, are doing the management instead of the top guy over there, but not really, okay? Not really. You'll see it, okay? Yeah, right? The ROE level, if he or she will stay in the future, okay? You are projecting the free cash flow into the future, okay? If the guy, the CEO, current CEO, stays there, okay, into the future, then the ROE will be similar to what the guy realized in history, okay? So pretty much the ROE will be the same. That's the idea. If new guy comes in, then you'll have to trace back his management style, okay? In his previous company, what did he do in terms of ROE, right? And then maybe imposing that to your company will be a better, projection, okay? The top guy is very important, okay? In terms of ROE, Now, and then the top management, let's see. Here is Apple, okay? Maybe one of the most dramatic case, okay? Apple Incorporated. You remember this as an iPhone company? And yes, iPhone company. But to me, this is computer company. 1980s, when I was elementary school, primary school guy, I was like, running around to get this kind of, Apple computer in my home. Not the Apple one, but the quasi-Apple one, copycat Apple, okay? So he was a star at that time, all the way up to 1984-ish, right? 84. He was a CEO of Apple and got fired and replaced by another CEO coming from Pepsi Cola. And then they sucked, essentially, because you see that the story in his autobiography or kind of books, right? Go ahead and read it. And then the replacement CEO eventually got fired in 1997, and then 1998 all the way up until 2011, the Steve Jobs, right, returned and then ruled the company as the CEO. Okay, the return of the king. And then came up the ROE back to original level or closer to the original level, right? Of course, when the company was very small and young and nimble, the ROE was extremely high, but it was in this high range, and that was re-achieved over here. That's what I'm trying to say, okay? And then after his death, Tim Cook took over, and then he was much, also very energetic, and then delivering high ROE, even higher ROEs, right? That's what's been going on. Well, if you compare, right, all that I'm trying to say is the management, right? The top guys matter a lot in terms of ROEs, right? The management style, the bringing the efficiency to the company, okay? Smart guy versus stupid guys matters in terms of ROEs. And then Samsung Electronics and LG Electronics are shown over here as a close comparison, if you believe it or not, okay? Apple is also shown it over there, okay? LG is also a wonderful one these days after Gu Guangmo is taking over in 2018. Temporarily, the ROE this year was not that good, but eventually will take off, I guess. LG Chem is doing very well over there, right? The top guy matters a lot. Now, focusing on Samsung Electronics, right? We have 3 generations of the founding family, being the number 1 guy, Byung-chul Lee, and then Gun-hee Lee, and then Jae-yong Lee, right? Jae-yong over here, right? So their average ROEs during their tenure is shown over here. 22%, 23%, about the same. And then ever since this guy got a stroke, JY Lee took over, and then afterwards the ROE has been 15% range, as you see it over here. Okay, now this brings you to some current issue. Okay, May 6th 2020. Why was he so serious? Here's G-Dragon. You may think it like Lee Jae-yong, right? Or JY Lee. G-Dragon is his nickname, I guess. What happened? Why was he apologetic? He said, he announced very important things over there, right? And I want you to estimate Samsung Electronics fair value, okay, in this exercise, okay? He said, I will not inherit my control of the group to my children. Okay, very important step. Okay, 1 step for a human being. I mean, the 1 step for just a man, but a very important step for Korean 재벌 management or the corporation management, right? Dynasty style management to more like US style management. Is he going after that, right? Throws a lot of question about it, okay, in terms of corporate governance. Now we will use net income times 1 minus ERR equals FCFE, okay, and then using this FCFE we want to estimate the free cash flow to equity, and then the estimate the value of the stock, right, Samsung. Okay, so let's see what's gonna happen.